to be clear, what we're sharing or what this sharing is about is a very uncommon message. It's seems to be very challenging for people even to understand the concepts, but the concepts are really quite straightforward and easy to understand. The reality of what we're talking about is not the concepts. They don't help or hinder the concepts. The most difficult part, I think, for most people to understand conceptually is that what we're sharing here has nothing to do with you. It doesn't recognize you at all. It's actually saying, contrary to the apparent experience, you aren't. The experience I am is an illusion. The experience I am is an outcrop of a tension in the body. That tension in the body has an experiential knowing to it here. As here arises, out of that arises, I am here. Neither of those are true. There's no I am, and there's no real here. Now when the I am arises as here, a part of that experience is I am real. And as soon as I arise as real, everything else suddenly becomes experientially real. So there's an arising of I am, and simultaneously, timelessly, that happens to everything else, including what we would call space or time. That all then has the experience of being real. I am here, everything else is out there, and everything that seems to be happening is happening to me. The suggestion is that's a dream. Not only is everything happening not happening to you, because there isn't anyone, but it's not actually happening. It appears to happen, seems to happen. Like we could talk about how this meeting began, seems to be in the past. But it's obviously, demonstrably, this appearing as that. You can't find the past. Now the experience of I am is dependent upon the past being real. The reason it seems real is because I am is dependent on the past being real, because it's dependent upon this appearance going somewhere. This appearance, this what's happening, isn't actually coming from anywhere. It isn't actually going anywhere. But the sense of I am is on a journey. This isn't enough for it. This is dissatisfying to it. So it's on a journey to satisfaction. It's on a journey to fulfillment. And that journey only has relevance if there's real time in which I can find what I'm looking for. So it's dependent upon the past being real. It's dependent upon this being a consequence of the past. So it is hope that this will be the cause of the future, and in the future it will find what it needs or what it wants, what it thinks it needs or wants. The biggest problem for that experience I am is what it's really looking for and will never ever find is the end of itself. It's looking for absence. It's actually looking for the spaciousness that is when it's not. All there is spaciousness. All there is the infinite. Everything that appears, everything that seems to be happening, including these words, is the infinite appearing as words. The infinite appearing as flowers or body. And it has no intrinsic need for anything to happen for it to be what it is. This appearance is that fulfillment that the individual thinks it will find in the future. And as this is already it, it'll never find it in the future. And as it has no reality, it'll never find it now. It can't find it now because it is it. There's no separation to what it's looking for. The experience of separation is a dream. So that's basically the message, basically the concepts which are out there.
Can I jump in?
Oh, absolutely.
The first word that comes to my mind is why.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of people now think that it's all a simulation.
Yeah.
These video programmers that connect the neural
Yeah.
software just to mess with us.
Yeah. The individual will always ask why, because that gives it some sort of hope that there's a way out. If it could find out why, it could find a way out. But as this isn't coming from anywhere, and it's not going anywhere, and it's not really happening, it has no need for why. There's no why. It's so free, it doesn't need why. Why is a constraint, a constriction.
But for us, it's an obvious question. But you're saying it's in your...
Well, the obvious for the individual is I am. That's why this message is so, that's why there's, I don't know how many people here, but that's why there's so few people here. Because it doesn't actually make sense what's being suggested here. What's being suggested, what's being said, is that that experience I am, that may be happening there, is illusory. It's not real. It's a dream that makes us all appear as it's not. That's real. As an appearance of real, it's in some sense denatured. It's solid and knowable. Separation is death. Mm-hmm. The experience of this as real is dead. When there's no one left, what's obvious is that this is aliveness. There is only aliveness. The knowing of what this room is covers over the aliveness that this room is. It's known, so it's looked over. It's known, so it's passed by. And the individual always looks over what it's looking for. By asking why. Because really it's asking, why am I here? Why am I? Why is anything? Because it's looking for meaning and purpose. As soon as the individual arises, part and parcel of that experience is a covering over of everything with the need of meaning and purpose. And there is no need of meaning and purpose. There isn't a meaning or purpose to what's happening.
There seems to be a need for it.
Oh, absolutely. Well, it's part and parcel of the experience of being I am. I have meaning. And the meaning and purpose is the story of I am. And the story is how I'm going to find what I feel I'm missing. How I'm going to find what seems to be missing in my experience of being a person. So everything the individual, in that story, is how personal judgment arises. So my story is, this is the hope, this is what I'm going to find in the end. And how I get there is how I come up with my story of what's good and bad and right and wrong. So everybody that's doing what I think is going to bring what I'm looking for, they're good. Mm-hmm. And everybody that's doing things that don't lead to what I think I'm looking for are bad or wrong. And when there's no one left, that falls away. Because there's no need for it anymore.
Well, if there's no one left, do the questions go and the persons go?
Well, absolutely. Questions about how to get to Elm Street don't disappear.
Yeah.
But questions about what this is about or why is it the way it is, there's no need. It's already fulfilled. It's already complete. It's not like the individual needs the end of a sentence for things to be complete. Anything that arises, half a sentence, half a thought, half a world, a forgotten feeling, a forgotten thought. You know how you have that feeling, ooh, I forgot something, it needs to be found?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's completeness. Appearing as that. It has no need to find.
Is it our conscious brain that keeps us trying to find it?
It's the experience of being an individual.
Yeah.
It's the experience, I am here.
Because our whole life is based on that.
Well, this isn't saying that there shouldn't be an individual, and it's not suggesting that there's a real problem. It's the experience of the individual that they have a life, and that it's based on something. But that experience is still the absolute appearing as that.
Right.
It doesn't matter.
It's all appearance.
It's all appearance.
So is it all only an energy field that is the background, to use a term?
Well, I wouldn't say it quite like that. All there is what appears,
Right.
and what appears is no thing,
Right.
thinging, or energy, thinging,
Right.
or emptiness, thinging, or
Right.
spaciousness, thinging.
So the background, would it?
There's no background.
There's no background, but
No.
is it somewhat silence?
No,
Is-
not at all.
No.
This, exactly what's happening
Right.
is the absolute.
Okay.
There has no need for there to be anybody that's not there. It has no need to be recognized or understood.
Okay.
It is that. So that question is the absolute speaking.
Okay, okay,
And this is the absolute responding. That's all there is.
all right. Okay.
The misunderstanding or the false claim is that the individual will say, I'm hearing, I'm speaking,
Okay, okay.
I'm understanding.
Right. Okay.
But you have to use the word individual and self and ego and all those. They have so much wrapped up in them. If you could just call it that
It's just words.
potential energy.
It's just words.
Yeah.
How would the me realize that there is no me?
It doesn't, of course.
And without me, so what's left?
Everything.
That's all.
Yeah.
And is there an experiencer of that?
No, of course not. No. It's the end of experience. It's the end of the subject-object experience. There's a few sort of mind games that I sort of play to sort of show how thin the individual is. They're not the actuality that I'm pointing to. They're actually quite completely just mind games. But when you're looking at me, you can't say where that happens. You can't say if the seeing happens here, or there, or there. You can't say. But that's just a mind game. It's not the reality behind it. Because the reality behind it is that when there's nothing here, there's obvious it's just happening. It's not happening anywhere. There is only everywhere or nowhere. There's just happening. There's only this happening. Words happening, movement happening. Has no solidity to it, has no past, no future. It's just an appearance.
And what restricts that?
The experience of being an individual. The experience of the individual says, I'm in here, I know I am, and I know that everything is out there, and I know that's happening to me, including thoughts or feelings, which are the most troubling for the individual, thoughts and feelings. That's the reason it likes spiritual teachings on detachment from thoughts and feelings.
And what is ego?
I don't know. Whatever you call it, I don't know. It's not a concept I use. It's not a word I use. I mean, you might tell me what you think it is, and we could talk about it. I don't know.
Or sight, I don't know why. Because it's just that sense of I am. I'm trying to understand how to deconstruct it.
Oh, well, you couldn't. The experience of the individual right now, in this moment, is a tension in the body. And that tension is looking for a better experience. And that tension, that better experience, is always coming and never this. So that better experience is what wants to deconstruct the I for a better experience. So even the want to deconstruct it is the same mechanism that covers over this. And so it's just a circle that goes on and on and on of looking for the end of the circle. And looking for the end of the circle is the circle. There is no circle. There is no person. There is no I am. There appears to be, until there isn't. And then there never was. There never was. When it stopped happening, it never happened. Because the claim of the individual, the experience of the as I am real, when it stops happening, what's obvious is nothing's real. So real never happened. So it's not happening. Although the experience is that it is.
That there's a way out of suffering rather than, okay, there's suffering.
This isn't a suggestion that there's a way out of anything.
Okay. So there's really no problem and nothing to do.
There's no problem and no one to do it.
Okay. That's what you would say.
There's things that apparently happen. But nobody does it.
And when you realize that, do you...
It's not a realization.
Okay, well, when you know it or whatever.
It's not like that.
Oh, okay.
It's at the end of the individual is a non-happening. It's not actually worth mentioning.
Okay.
If I hadn't been asked to talk, I'd never talk about it. What would there be to say?
Right.
How much sense does this meeting make? You're not, nothing's happening.
And no one's here.
And no one's here! Yeah.
Saying
nothing. Let's have coffee.
Good night, folks.
But you wouldn't be fearful.
Fearful?
About that, would you?
About what?
About there being nothing but everything at the same time.
Who would be afraid of that?
Only the I.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
But it's not afraid of that. It's afraid of the end. It's afraid of what it wants. It really wants the end of seeking. But the problem for it is it wants to know it stopped seeking. It wants absence, but it wants to know that it's absence.
And that's still seeking.
That's the same thing. It just keeps on
Right.
going. It just keeps
Right.
on going.
Guess it's like a circle.
It is a circle because there's nothing. It's not going anywhere.
Right.
What led you to the understanding of this?
Excuse me.
What led you to the understanding of this?
So, this does. I don't understand this.
Okay, right,
No one understands this.
okay,
The understanding of this has nothing to do with the reality of it.
okay.
We're talking about the end of a constricted
Right.
sense of here,
Yes,
of to which everything is really happening,
right,
to that.
yeah, okay,
That's not understanding.
right,
The individual does this with everything.
Yeah.
Searching.
Yeah.
It's got screwdrivers and hammers and things, and every thought and every appearance, it's
Yes.
putting it all into its system so that it, trying to stop having to put it all into its system.
right,
It's not about understanding.
right, okay.
You don't, it sounds like this knows something. It sounds like this is an authority. That's total misunderstanding. This doesn't know anything, and there's no authority. There's nothing to tell you. There's nothing for you here.
But I have I try to not to be I. So I watch myself.
But you're already not
always. Okay,
There's already no I.
okay.
So who's trying not to be it?
My habit of my thinking, the habits that arise, that I'm someone. So I watch it. I try since I listen. I watch it to say, I appear.
Who would watch it?
I don't know. The I
Yeah.
The I.
The I.
Okay.
The I is looking for the end of I and wants to
Yes.
know the end of I.
Yeah.
The I wants to know it's not.
Mm. Yeah.
Good luck.
Okay.
It's hopeless.
Mm.
It's completely hopeless. For the I, that's a horrible thing.
Yes.
Mm.
But there's no need for hope. This is already everything. The I doesn't want to die. So it's searching for something to help it to control, to maintain.
Yeah.
It's already dead. You're already dead. It never happened. There's nothing that needs to survive. There's no need for anything else. This doesn't need to be fixed. There's no need for the I to complete this or to find anything. There's no need for the I not to be there.
So that is very it's very reconforting. That there's no need to have it.
Yeah. It sort of goes like this, doesn't it? Sometimes it's comforting, sometimes it sucks. Sometimes it's comforting, sometimes it
Yes,
sucks.
that's true. So the absolute manifests itself?
No.
No.
No. The individual, because it's in a story of something happening, it can only understand what's being said here as a story, as something really happening. The absolute, which becomes something else. There's no suggestion that there's an absolute energy field or anything that becomes something else. The absolute and the relative are the same thing. It's not happening. It's not moving. It's not real. When the I arises, everything appears to have some sort of solidity. When the I that solidity allows for the experience of consequential continuum time. Cause and effect, cause and effect, cause and effect, cause and effect, of which the individual is merely an effect. An effect of an effect of an effect of an effect. When the individual stops happening, nothing has that same solidity anymore. So cause and effect have no cause and effect. Time isn't solid. It's just an appearance. Nothing depends upon what's happening. Absolute freedom is already everything. It doesn't need anything to become that.
But if there's suffering, you said there's a suffering?
Yeah?
So,
What's wrong with suffering?
the I don't want it.
No. Well, the problem is that the I feels responsible for it. It takes responsibility for everything that happens. And so it wants to take responsibility or find a solution to it. I'm not suggesting that if someone came up here to cut off my leg, that there wouldn't be some sort of action to get away from that. What I am suggesting is that there's no one in here that would do that. It would just be what happens. And that's already what this is. Happening. There's just happening.
But there's a tension in the body.
There is. There's a contraction in the body, which is beyond recognition. You, if there's someone in there, will never know the I am tension until it falls away. It's in the ending of it, because it's so intrinsic in the experience that there's no distance to it. And when it falls away, it's a complete surprise. It's just the last place you would have looked.
I certainly feel a tension all the time.
But that's not, you could say that that's a part of I am, but that's not the completeness, because there's no subject that could look at that tension as an object, because that tension is the subject. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's much bigger than you think, the tension that falls away. It's much more intense. It's much more through the entire body.
So I missed that. I was curious. You're saying that the tension is not exclusive to the body.
Oh no, I am. It is the body.
Okay. Yeah.
It's in the body. What I'm suggesting is that there's no way to objectify that tension, to know it as I am, to know the completeness of the tension that gives rise to I am, until the I am falls away. In the falling away, that how pervasive that tension is becomes obvious. Becomes obvious.
So there's usually a tendency to deal with the tension itself as a problem.
Yeah.
And say, I need to get rid of this tension.
Well, the individual is on a journey.
Yeah.
So anything that doesn't, like we spoke about, anything that doesn't fit into the story that it's told itself of how it's going to find what it's looking for is a problem. And it works on that with its toolkit to try to make it fit. This doesn't make sense. This happening actually doesn't make sense. So the individual comes up with a story about what this is about. There's no intrinsic story in this appearance. It's completely empty. It's chaotic, anarchic, without need or meaning and purpose. It's just everything. And the individual arises and puts it all into little boxes with its toolkit so that it makes sense to it. Because that's how it's going to find what it's looking for, what's next. The next experience that's going to be better than this one.
Do you think that humans are hardwired to do that? Because maybe when we weren't so affluent, we needed to do that to get food and shelter.
No, it has no evolutionary purpose. But if you talk to neuroscientists, they'll tell you there are 9 nodes in the brain that collaborate to create the sense of I. But that's just a story. That has nothing to do with how it falls away. When it falls away, there aren't a recognition of 9 nodes that then are no longer talking to each other. There's an actual just falling away of that experience, the collapse of experience, the collapse of real distance, real time, real happening.
But there's a sense that I'm trying to figure this out, but I know I can't figure it out. So.
Oh, I think the concepts are quite straightforward and simple.
Yeah.
They're just not what we're talking about.
Oh.
I mean, it's fair enough to talk about the concepts and get it clear. There's no problem with that. But what we're talking about is a shift beyond understanding or beyond the words.
Could you review the basic concepts?
There's no one and nothing's happening.
Then die.
Or not.
That's it?
Yeah, that's about it.
So this is a dream, this is an illusion?
This is an appearance. The dream, the illusion, is the experience that this is personal, or this is real, or this is happening to me. That's the dream.
Would you say that the absolute is perfection?
You could. It's a little misleading for the individual because the individual thinks perfection would be I'm going to get what I want. For the individual is looking for I'm happy for forever.
But minus the individual. Minus
Yeah, you could absolutely say it's perfection. It's absolutely
saying
perfect.
that this...
But perfection in the sense that there's no need or possibility that it could be anything but what it is. At the same time, you have to say there's no need for it to be what it is. For the individual, there's a real need for this to be what it is. So, another mind trick, which isn't the reality behind it, but it points to how thin the experience of the individual is. You know how in a dream, and when you sleep at night, you have a dream, and that dream just starts somewhere, and somehow you just assume, or there's the experience that it makes sense. There's no question of where did this begin or anything like that. You do not know that this isn't that. You do not know that this isn't a dream that has no real beginning. You don't know. There's no reference point to know that from. Any reference point could just simply be a part of the same dream.
But it is a dream, right?
This is an appearance. The only dream is the individual.
Okay.
That this matters, or that it's personal, or that it's happening to me.
So Jim, when the body is no longer here, so you die, do you have that?
Nobody dies.
I mean, do you get the sense of the freedom of everything, being everything?
This is everything being everything.
Oh, it's the same thing, okay.
Well, you're telling me a story that there's something called death. Death only makes sense as if there's somebody who's alive and then is no longer alive and therefore doesn't know they're dead. So who's dead if they don't know they're dead? Or somebody who's alive that knows they're dead. And if there's somebody that knows they're dead, who's dead? Death is a concept, has no reality.
That was a little fast. Could you
Is it possible to just go back?
Death only makes sense if there's somebody that knows they're dead.
So it's still the I.
But who would know they were, if somebody knew they were dead, who would be dead? Death assumes the knowing end of I am. Doesn't make sense. Who could know the end of I am? It's just a concept. It's again another mind trick, but it points to the flimsy concepts that the individual has about what this is. The reality of the end of the individual is spacious everything, spacious aliveness. And what it's looking for is this. This is that spacious aliveness that it's looking for. There is only that. The experience, the false claims of the individual just are false. They're not true. It's very simple.
Can the absolute be experienced?
No.
There's no reference by which to experience it?
It can't be known or experienced. It's the unknowing, which of course is the end of the individual. The individual is the experience of I know. In Buddhism, they've got a saying of nailing a nail into the air. And that's the knowing of the individual. And it actually has stepping stones in the imaginary, they're just little stepping stones in the air of knowing. And it thinks it's going somewhere.
I think people strive for experiencing what we want as experiences. And so I think we bring that into non-duality. What's the experience?
Yeah.
Fair enough. This
Oh,
would be
the individual will necessarily misunderstand what's being said.
Yeah.
It can't relate to it.
I mean, that's why I keep going back to, like, how? I don't know.
Well, there's no you.
On
Well, first, there'd have to be a you for there to be a how. There's no you. If the question is how do I, how could you if there's no you? There's no one inside that body. No one has ever made a decision. There's no one there with a life. There's no one there with a future. So where would that how happen?
The individual can't just live by these concepts. It's not like now.
Oh, it'll try. It will. I'm nobody.
Yeah.
I'm not here. I don't have free will and choice. It'll try that. It can't help it.
So from practicing.
It'll take everything and try to make it into the story. Remember the story of the consequence where it's trying to find the end of... Yeah. It'll have to... It uses everything, or tries to. But all it does with that is it lives in a circle. I want to not be. I want to not be. I want to not be. Which is a confirmation that I am wanting to not be.
Yeah.
It's the best confirmation.
Yeah. Yeah. Hi. Well, that's all right. I heard you were at another Elm Street somewhere.
Elm Avenue.
Oh, right.
Oh, it's frustrating.
You didn't miss anything.
But she had a horrible
I didn't miss
experience.
anything. Okay. Yeah.
Nothing happened.
The experience was only apparent. Didn't happen to anybody.
I kept reminding myself.
Oh, right.
As I was coming.
Who was reminding themselves?
I kept practicing.
Is there any benefit in knowing this?
Absolutely not.
No.
This isn't about helping you.
Oh, that's consistent.
This is the difference between what's being shared here and almost every other message or teaching. They're trying to help you. They're trying to tell you something. This has nothing for the individual. It doesn't even acknowledge that it's real.
So it's just the falling away of the illusion.
The funny thing is when it falls away, and when it does there, what'll be obvious is it didn't happen. There's no falling away. It's a non-happening. So when it fell away here, there's a realization that there's no one. That's not the end of the individual, because that realization still seems to happen to somebody. But a part of that realization is it didn't happen.
And it didn't happen because it never was.
That's right. Well, there's nothing, the claims that the individual has about what this is, they're false. All of its claims about that something needs to happen, or this isn't complete or fulfilled, or that I am real, that everything's happening to me, that I have free will and choice to create a future which will be better than this, those are all false claims. That's not true. So it never is true. There is no duality. So the falling away of duality, or experiential duality, doesn't create non-duality. This is already non-dual. There never was duality. It's not happening.
This is it.
This is it.
So in a way, it's it.
No, not like that. Not like now. Not like an exclusive this. Not like an exclusive now. The now of seeking for something is an exclusive now. Oops, I wasn't being now. Now I'll be now. Now I'll focus on now as exclusive to discursive thoughts or the past or the future or focusing attention. The suggestion here is there is nothing else. It doesn't need to be recognized. It requires no effort.
And it has nothing to do
With you.
with learning to quieten the mind.
It's got nothing to do with you.
Okay.
Period. So anything you think you're doing, it's got nothing to do with that. It's got nothing to do with anything you could suggest because there's no relationship left when it's there, when it's gone. The experience of relationship in that sense is an illusion.
So what would be the, trying to use the word mechanism or something, hearing what you're suggesting and a falling away of somebody hearing that?
Yeah.
I guess I'm,
There's no relationship.
okay.
There is an energy here, and I hesitate to say it because it sounds like there's something on offer. There isn't. It just seems that in these meetings, there's an energy that arises. But the fact is that energy, or that saying of this, everything is always saying this. The bus that's about to run you over is saying, this is all there is. The dog shit on the ground that you just stepped in is saying, this is all there is. This is fulfillment. The bird singing is saying, this is fulfillment. There's nothing that's not saying, this is all there is. This is whole and complete and fulfilled.
So immediately the mind wants to say, well, is there a deconditioning process?
No.
Does the body work for this
Now-
contraction?
now when there's
I realize that's absurd, but yeah.
When there's an individual, the apparent ending of the individual seems like a process.
Yeah.
Because it's living in a process, because it's hope that the process is going to lead to something. Something happening never leads to nothing happening. This is nothing happening. And there's no need for a process. So a couple of months ago, somebody called me up and said, hey, I watched one of your videos. There's no one left. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Happy customer.
Of course, you have no idea. You have no idea where they are or what's happening. But it's quite, why not?
But
It's very possible that nobody leaves this room.
I've heard told.
I've locked the door. You'll never get out. No, but there's very possible that nobody will leave this room. There's no need for anything to happen. This end of the individual isn't an experience. And it's not the consequence of other experiences.
I've heard Tony Parsons make an allusion to the energy and that,
Yeah,
that can
it's true.
Apparently, I don't know.
It's true, though.
Yeah.
I know I can't understand what you're saying.
Of course you can. It's very simple. The concepts are very, very simple. They're just not the reality we're pointing to.
Uh-huh. You know what, I just want to describe, because I'm just, it feels so fast to me.
Yeah.
It feels so fast that I know, you know, generally I understand, but it feels so fast that I kind of don't understand.
Yeah.
But I kind of also intuit that it's shaking up something.
Yeah.
So that's kind of
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah. Doesn't mean anything.
Doesn't.
No.
That's the nail in the sky.
That's a nail in the sky, yeah.
That's a what in the sky?
The nail in the
Trying
sky.
to nail it in the sky.
Yeah.
Trying to hang miracle content.
Nothing wrong with it. But it can appear, people seem to respond to this in very different ways.
But is not the absolute self-aware of itself?
How could it do that?
If it's the absolute, wouldn't it have the ability to observe itself?
Well, I mean, you're saying the absolute has some sort of intelligence beyond the appearance of everything.
Well,
Yeah, but it doesn't.
if it is, it should be able to observe itself.
But you're saying it has an intelligence beyond the appearance of everything, which means that with this intelligence, it could separate itself from itself to be aware of itself, as though there'd be some need for that. It's already everything, and there's no need to be aware of itself. And nobody ever is aware of the absolute.
But I'm saying the absolute being aware of itself.
Yeah, but all there is the absolute.
So doesn't it have self-aware capabilities?
Well, how would it do that if it's already everything? There's no real distance or time for it to do that. Knowing is a dream.
It's sort of like saying self automatically divides it right off the bat. As soon as you say know itself, it separates it. And it couldn't be.
Right.
Since it's everything.
So what created this?
Nothing.
It's not created.
So nothing's created.
It's not created. This isn't coming from anywhere. This is everything. This is absolute freedom. Appearing as a question, appearing as movement, appearing as this. That's it. That's all there is. There is nothing else except what's looked for.
You know, I experienced that while you're saying it.
Yeah.
But when I leave...
That's the energy we're talking about. And you don't know that. You don't know that when you leave, it'll be different. You don't know that.
Yeah, that's the circle.
You don't know anything.
Right.
There's no you.
You use the word "this" a lot.
Yeah.
Is there any possibility at all of describing what you mean? I mean, it's
Yeah.
everything. so-
Spacious aliveness.
Thank you. Yeah.
Sounds like fun.
Oh, it's everything. It's fun, suffering,
Right. Well, yeah.
sadness, joy, bliss, depression. It's everything. It has no need not to be anything. It's not going anywhere. It's the experience that this needs to go somewhere. This needs to become something that makes what seems to be happening right or wrong, good or bad. When it's not going anywhere, that falls away. It's just what seems to be happening. And really you can get away stop with seems to and just say there's only happening. Happening. Body happening. Pictures happening. Body happening. Table happening. There's just happening. There's just happening, and that happening is everything, is all there is. The individual puts happening in relation to itself, and so there then is something else. And that something else is what seems to be missing in this happening. When that something else falls away, never was something else, there's only what's happening, which is obviously complete, obviously whole, obviously everything. Not in the sense that I become something, that I get something, but in the sense that there's no longer any need for it to be anything else.
So your use of the word everything does not restrict it to the physical this, or it's...
Well, it's anything. Can we say anything?
Okay.
Yeah? This is anything. All there is anything.
Yeah, because it doesn't put a limit to things.
Yes. Yeah. That's right.
Jim, would it be a mistake to describe the message more akin to existentialism than non-duality? Because in non-duality,
no,
there's a lot of talk that I am.
Well, I mean, non-duality means not to. Where's the I am in not to? How do you have an I am in not to? I am and then something else. How do you do that? Even if you say, I am everything, then I am doesn't make any sense anymore. So how can you have I am if what we're talking about is non-duality? And existentialism is sort of materialism. And this isn't material. There is no actual thing. There's no solidity.
Yeah, that's where I'm stuck, because I'm interpreting the message.
Well, she was too. She pointed out correctly, this, as though all that there is the senses. All there is what the senses are reporting.
Body.
Exactly.
That's it.
But it's emptiness, bodying. So it's beyond the concepts of existentialism. What are we talking about?
Existentialism.
Existentialism. Yeah.
Beyond the concepts of anything, that could be put
Totally.
into words.
Totally.
Would you say that there's anything like a misperception when you say there's no solidity? If we're experiencing solidity, are we misperceiving this?
Absolutely. That's what I mean with the false claim of the individual.
When you say
And that
anything-
misperception does not make it true.
So there's a seeming misperception.
That's all we're talking about.
Yeah.
It is the seeming misunderstanding. I call it a psychosomatic misunderstanding to at least get underneath the experience or the idea that the individual will do anything about it.
So it's illusory misunderstanding,
Well,
conceptual
it's
misunderstanding.
illusory. Yeah. This isn't solid.
Which is not even real.
What? No, it's not. It's not true.
Yeah, it's
This isn't solid.
It's an appearance of a misunderstanding.
There's not real duality. It's an experience. That's the big trouble for the individual, is this is an experience. And its whole journey has to do with experience. So it's actually trying to overcome this experience, or experience, by having more experience.
That's the line.
What do thoughts and emotions appear like to you?
Well, there's no one here, so they just appear.
There's no self-reference.
There's no self-reference.
That's terrifying for you.
Yeah, it's terrifying. It is.
There's never a thought that runs through there that starts with I?
Well, I don't know what you mean by that, but there's no I in here. But there are thoughts. And I will say I want to go have sushi.
Okay.
But nobody's saying that.
Gotcha.
Nobody's saying it there either.
No.
Yeah.
Yes, we agree. Wait, not we. At least no one agrees.
No one agrees.
I still haven't worked in the murdering babies.
Oh, we're back to murdering babies,
Yeah.
are we?
I was telling them about that. I went over to Krishnamurti's place in Hawaii, and the one lady, I was in a non-dualistic meeting, and the one lady just couldn't get rid of, she couldn't accept the fact that, it just seems to come up with the suffering every time.
Yeah.
Why is there suffering? Yeah.
If I basically see this all as an activity, would the word activity be something similar to your happening?
No.
No.
Well, I don't know. When you say, I see this, that doesn't sound similar. This doesn't see this.
No, I don't mean that. I mean, it all appears, let's say, as an activity, rather than something.
Maybe, I don't know.
So I guess, since I'm asking about definitions of words, what would be a way of describing happening?
You can't.
Okay, good.
There's no relationship to it. No one knows what's happening.
Right, yeah. It's just.
So knowing this is body happening is the problem.
It's just.
When there's no
that-
individual left, there's just happening.
So how does that falling away occur?
You missed the beginning.
I'm sorry.
That's all right.
I went to the wrong address as well.
We can come back. We can go back around. It doesn't happen.
Okay, because I've had glimpses,
Yeah.
I call them,
Yeah.
where I would call it.
You didn't have them.
No.
You
No.
stopped happening,
There was
and
just-
there was a glimpse of
There
what
was
is.
verbing, there was seeing,
Yeah.
there was walking.
Yeah.
I've had.
You didn't have it.
There's been, but then the perception of the body and the person comes back.
Yeah.
Fully. So is, your perception of that is gone fully?
Yes.
How does that happen?
In the same way that it happened there.
But it, so it just
How did
comes
that
along
happen?
when it comes, I was in a meeting with Paul Hederman.
Yeah.
That's another teacher.
Yeah. I'm not a teacher.
And a couple of times with him. And it went for 4 days.
Yeah.
Once. But then it just came back.
Yeah.
And now it's back.
Mm.
Or whatever.
Mm.
So it's come back with a complete disinterest
Mm.
in this.
Yeah.
Like complete
Yeah.
disinterest.
It'll do anything to survive.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
So if it says, I'm disinterested,
Yeah.
it'll think that'll help it survive.
So it just happens when it's supposed to happen? or-
It doesn't happen.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I know.
It didn't happen to you.
No.
Your memory of it is not what it was like.
Okay, interesting. I know I wasn't there.
Yeah. This is that. This is you not being there. This is that. That didn't happen in the past.
Okay.
This is that. It doesn't go away. There's an experience that seems to come back to cover over what was revealed.
Yeah.
But this is that. Looking for it, or wanting to know it, or feeling like you are there, is the dream that covers it over. The individual is determined, and I'm not sure what Mr. Hederman talks about. I don't think it's the same thing exactly. But here, it's obvious that the individual will always put those experiences into a story because it wants to understand what happened and it wants to have it back. It's not a story. It was the end of the appearance making sense. And nobody knows what that's like.
When you said it will do anything to survive, what do you mean?
The individual wants to survive. That's its whole story. It just doesn't want to die.
What does surviving mean?
Not dying.
Doesn't want to die.
No, it doesn't want to die. That's the whole story. That's its whole thing. That's the big problem in its life. Separation is death. And it's trying to overcome separation, so it's trying to overcome death.
So it will always keep itself alive.
It will do anything it can to survive. It's on very shaky ground, though. It always is.
Is it?
Oh, completely. It's not there. It's not real. All of its claims are false. All of its claims about what is happening are false. Completely false. Completely unreal. Shaky ground.
Does a part of it know it, that it's unreal?
You could sort of say that. You could sort of say that. It's not, I wouldn't say it's really true, but there is something about it where it feels an insecurity about its isness, which is one of its anxious caring, if you know what I mean. Like it's really trying.
Yeah.
Yeah, that comes out of that sense of insecurity about its reality.
So it's just a game of illusory mind stuff.
It's not just the mind, it's an experience. I don't know what the mind is anyway, but it's an experience. That's the problem. It's a physical experience of there being a ghost in the machine that has buttons and levers making everything happen and keeping everything in control.
Okay.
It can take this sentence and put it into a box which it says it can understand.
Right.
Yeah. And it's doing that constantly. It's exhausting.
So the awareness of this not being is what it is.
If that's what's happening there, then that's what's happening. But if you're trying to describe what it's like here, there's no awareness of this being the way it is. It's just the way it is. Nobody knows that. It's not an awareness of it.
Can it be described somewhat as what is?
Well, I mean, this is doing its best to describe it, but the description is not the reality.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
It is the reality, and it's not the reality. Right. Every word is everything.
Yeah. But a complete awakeness is the realization that it's just a dream.
No, not here.
No, not there. Yeah.
Okay. Here. Yeah. There's no here.
There's no here.
But is the end of the dream.
Right.
Nobody wakes up.
Exactly.
Okay. The dream is the dreamer's own dream.
Right.
When the dream ends, no one's left to wake up. There's just no dreamer. No dream.
Can you say that again, please?
The dreamer.
The dream is
the dreamer is the dream's own dream.
Yeah.
The dreamer and the dream are the same thing. So when the dream ends, the dreamer ends, and nobody wakes up.
Okay. You know, there's a title of a Science and Non-Duality conference 6-7 years ago, which is, you probably remember this, is who is driving the dream bus?
Oh yeah.
Do you think that's a relevant question? Do you think you can even look at that?
Yeah. I mean, it's just, who's driving the dream bus? Yeah.
I'm curious, like, reflected on who's driving.
Nobody.
Yes, then you're left with it. If no one's driving it, then how did it get here? I know it's
Well, it didn't get here.
Yeah.
The individual is dependent upon consequential continuity. So it always sees everything as the result or the consequence and the cause of something else. That's a dream. This doesn't actually come from anywhere. So I'm talking about what's happening. I'm talking about this. Isn't actually a consequence of you coming. You didn't come here.
That is amazing.
Coming here is what is, or this, appearing as the memory of coming here. Doesn't prove that anything happened.
Say it again. Coming here, remember again, coming here is...
So what is, if you remember coming here,
Okay.
that's what is, appearing as a memory of coming here.
Sure, yeah.
It doesn't prove coming here happened.
Right.
The individual is dependent upon it absolutely proving coming here happened, because that gives it the future in which it won't have to die.
Right. I am because I
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. And I need to have come here because I need a future in which to find what I'm looking for. Covering over, this is what's looked for. This is the wholeness. This is the absolute. This is endlessness. Without a beginning. This is infinite.
But this can't be seen.
No, it's not an experience.
It can't be.
I know, it just sounds, it's very misleading that this sits up here and talks about it because it sounds like this knows and understands it. And it doesn't. This is absolute, fresh, and new. Everything that's coming out is nothing or no thing, just speaking. It's the same there. There's just maybe something in there that says, I'm doing this.
It's so frustrating to hear this because
Yeah, it's
like
horrible.
that I can't.
Yeah, you'll never get it. It's the worst message. It's the absolute worst thing that could be told to you. If you knew what was being said here, you'd never come. Nobody wants to hear this.
Because now I want it.
You do not want it. It's unwantable. To want it would mean that there was separation to it. There isn't. There's no distance to it. You can't want what's happening. How could you want what's already happening?
Is the dream part of it? Is the dream part of everything?
Absolutely. Well, it is everything. The dream is also everything. It just, the experience isn't that. The experience is what, dissatisfying.
Right. It's suffering.
Yeah. A lot of that suffering is the expectation that something needs to happen, and it's not going to get it. It doesn't need to happen. It's a false claim. It'll never happen. You'll never get it. Nobody ever does. What you're looking for is sitting on a chair. How can you look for or find what's already happening? And the reason you're looking for it is because you think you know you're sitting on a chair, which covers over the reality, this spacious aliveness of sitting on a chair. Whatever appears is simply real and unreal. It's simply empty.
I guess I'm getting at,
Excuse me?
I guess I'm getting at the past being what is now, being the past being brought into what isn't. It wouldn't exist if it weren't for now, being brought into the now.
So this doesn't see a now. For this, there's no now. There's only what appears. Because if there were a now, there would be something that wasn't now.
Right,
and now would be the place you should be, and then there would be a place you shouldn't be. And that's not what's being suggested here. Mm-hmm. There's nowhere and no thing that isn't already fulfillment and completeness. That isn't spacious aliveness. Including the individual, which is the kicker for the individual.
A few sentences back you said this is real and unreal.
Yeah.
So does those two things cancel each other out?
No.
So what do you mean by real and unreal?
Spacious aliveness, empty fullness, is and isn't. You could also say nothing is real and nothing is unreal. It's pointing to the fact that nothing can be held on to, nothing can be known.
Oh, okay.
Oh, that is so sweet. Isn't that funny how some things sort of click and others, yeah.
Why didn't you say it earlier?
Why didn't you say that earlier? Well, that makes sense.
So in that story, nothing really facilitated the falling away, it just fell away.
No, right. Well, it doesn't actually. I'm not sure, maybe you weren't here. The experience of the individual is a row or a conglomeration of false claims. Those claims are false. Part of the claim is it's real, and so it would need to fall away for this to be what it is. That's false. This is already what it is. This is already what's looked for. So the falling away never happens. I think there might be an expectation there that the experience would happen again.
Yeah.
And that's what's looked for.
Well,
But that's just the same false claim of the individual that this needs to look in a certain way. That there needs to be something in particular happening for this to be what it is. This is never not what it is. This is never not the absolute. There's nothing that appears that's not the absolute.
So there's a thought that, why come here? Why
Totally,
come here?
absolutely. Good
But
thought,
it's-
absolutely.
but it
If you
still
paid, you're welcome to
happens.
go.
No. But it still happens, it just happens.
But that's the same as that's all there is what seems to happen. Because you could also say, why not come here?
Well, it just happens.
It just happens, absolutely.
Like you think you're going to do this and then this happens.
Yeah, well, I think I'm going to do everything. I'm going to decide this.
Yeah.
I decided to come here. I decided to use the GPS and get lost. I decided to do that. Yeah. I didn't do anything. I don't have a thought. I never had a thought.
Yeah.
I don't think. The I doesn't think. It takes responsibility. It claims certain thoughts and creates a dynamic around which the thoughts turn around it. But it has no power at all.
You know, the
It's a reaction.
conundrum is, it's like, there's nothing I can do.
No. Sorry. There's no I.
Okay, so, but there's nothing to do.
Nothing needs to
That
happen.
needs to be done.
Everything that seems to happen
Yeah.
is the absolute which is looked for.
And there's this wanting to, okay, well then what do I do?
Which
But
is
then
the
it just-
absolute, which is the absolute appearing as that.
Okay.
There's no way to get away from what you're looking for.
So there's the also, when this says, I'm not gonna do this anymore, this is crap, I'm done.
Yeah.
It still does it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
It doesn't do anything.
No. It just still happens.
It's just what seems to happen. There's only what seems to be happening. See, the individual inside here claims everything that seems to be happening. So it's happening to me and it's real. When there's nothing inside here anymore, there's just simply happening. And it's not happening to anybody.
I know. I
Yeah. Well, you've had the experience. You've seen it. Yeah. It's not reduced to that experience. It's not reduced to that seeing. It's not reduced to that understanding or that memory. This is that. Nothing changed.
Is there any like spectrum in this I place?
In a dream there is. In the dream there's more and less I, more or less contraction. Doesn't mean anything. It's not, the suggestion sounds like if there's less of a contraction, it's closer to freedom or closer to no one than more contraction. And that doesn't have, that's not a correlation that's real.
What is the way to live with less suffering? Less experiencing,
The-
less...
The individual is the continuation of suffering. The psychonomy seeks out, without an individual, less suffering.
The psychonomy?
what do you call it? I mean, just this whole system, whatever you want to call it,
Okay.
will seek out positive experiences and avoid negative experiences. It doesn't need an individual to do that.
Sure.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
No, absolutely not.
Oh, there's a mechanism that's just seeking that out?
Absolutely.
And the eye doesn't...
That's the reason you don't walk in the street in the traffic. Why you put on warm clothes when you go outside, when it's cold. Not today.
Or even if you're going to swat a fly, the fly will fly away.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
And we're not that different.
There's an instinctual whatever
I see.
that wants to survive. The body wants to survive. But it's not personal. The individual attaches itself to that.
Yeah.
And says, I have to do it.
So it's like an afterthought or something.
In a way, you could say it's sort of an afterthought, yeah. It's a reaction. The individual is a
It's
reaction.
always reacting.
It's only a reaction with the experience of having power, of being a cause. Is not a cause. It's a reaction.
It's never a cause.
It's never a cause. It's a reaction to a reaction to a reaction. If it were a cause, it could cause the end of itself.
Which it can't.
No.
At all.
No. Every effort is a confirmation of the need to seek.
Yeah, I didn't catch that. You said if there is a cause, it would cause the end of itself.
Yeah.
Can you explain that?
Well, if it had any power, it would end itself.
Oh, which is what we want. We want.
Yeah. Well, you don't, but yeah, it would.
Yeah.
It would. Yeah.
We think we do.
Yeah.
But there's no.
Well, you think you want what I'm talking about. You don't.
Yeah. Yeah. So why are we here? I'm sure you've heard that.
Well, there's two possibilities, and this answer's come out before. There's two possibilities. One, you think you're going to get something, in which case you'll be very frustrated.
Yeah.
Or two, there's something, for me, everybody already knows what we're talking about.
Yeah.
It's already absolutely obvious.
Yeah.
And this is sort of like taking a bath in that.
Yeah. Okay. Yes.
It's the closest to being home. That's what I used to say. It's the closest to being home.
Yes.
Because like you said, when this says it, it sort of creates a sort of a reality. It could sort of taste it a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. This fell in love with that.
Yes.
What do you mean this fell in love with that?
What don't you understand?
Just go ahead.
So is there any point to meditation?
There's no point to anything.
So,
So why not meditate?
It's like saying why not exercise? Exercise is good for the body.
Yeah.
Meditation's good for the
This
body.
has no suggestion on any level
Yeah.
that there should or shouldn't be anything happening, because it's already obvious that whatever's happening is the absolute, is fullness, is everything happening.
Yeah.
So it matters not. It just doesn't matter. War doesn't matter. Killing babies doesn't matter. Falling in love doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's absolute freedom. It's uncontainable, ungraspable, absolute freedom. But that's not somewhere else. That's all there is. This is that. Even seeking. You could sort of say that no thing or the absolute thought it'd be very clever and look for itself. Oh, look what I can do. I can pretend I don't know what I am. And go on a journey to find myself. That's a dream.
So Jim, are you saying that there's nothing to do?
No, I'm saying there's no one to do it. Mm.
So you're saying perfection is everywhere?
You
Or-
could say
or unconditional love?
You could say all there is perfection, all there is unconditional love, all there is pizza. So what's being pointed to is something beyond the concepts, beyond the words. So infinite is not conceptual, you can't conceptualize it. unconditional love is nothing to do with the love that the individual thinks that it experiences. Absolute has nothing to do with anything anybody could. So if we're talking about everything, if we're talking about the absolute, call it pizza. It's not the word, really.
But that's all there is the
all
one-
there is all
one-
there is.
The one thing.
There's no thing. All there is whatever arises. There's nothing outside of the absolute.
So there's only one thing, one absolute.
You can't say one. That would make it a thing. That's the reason Advaita, why they came up with the word, because you can't actually point to anything. But what can be said is there aren't two.
But you can't say.
Excuse me?
But you can't say just one.
No. Well, I mean, if you say all there is one, then we're back to pizza. Yeah.
So it's indescribable.
It's complete. This is indescribable.
But I mean, is there anything else to do other than look for experiences?
Well, that's the individual.
Okay, so
that's all it does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there is an individual.
But it's a better experience. It's just looking for a better experience.
So guaranteed there's going to be an experience, but the individual says, I can do better than this. I can plan for a better experience.
Well, it can't. It's impossible to hold on to anything. So any better experience is going to pass right through. So you win the lottery, that only is exciting until you've lost all your money and all your friends.
Mm-hmm.
Then you've got to go do something else.
Yeah.
Or you take 5-MeO, and then that goes away, and then you have to look for it again, or try to find something else, or you watch a movie on Netflix, and then that passes, you have to look for something else. So the problem for the individual is that the new experience, the positive experience, has no consistency. It can't be held on to.
Right.
Because it doesn't touch the problem.
Right.
No experience is going to touch the problem of the need for more new experience, or the sense of loss from the experience of separation. Nothing touches that.
Like I've noticed if I find a really good experience, and I say, okay, that was awesome, and then I recreate the experience, generally the recreation is never like the original.
Mm-hmm.
Instead there's a sense of, wait, no, maybe that's not it. Because, it's the thing about recreating experience. But in the case of, how you refer to yourself, I mean, is there a sense of still looking for experiences?
Not at all.
Okay. So you're going to Vancouver this weekend. Are you anticipating an experience in Vancouver?
Absolutely not.
Really?
Who would?
Yeah, I understand it, but I can't.
No, the misunderstanding is because this says it, that assumes that there's a person here that understands it and grasps it. That's a misunderstanding. What's being described or shared is there's no one here that understands or grasps it. But that can't understand that because it can only function in understanding and grasping. It's much more simple than the individual thinks. And a whole lot less dramatic. The individual is waiting for an experience, quite a dramatic experience. The individual, that's why it has these gurus, these famous gurus, who it likes to follow, because those are special people who found something special. And the individual is very, very special. Everything is about it. And so it assumes that its problems, because the world's really big and complicated, and everything out there is all going on, and all this needs, and we need to save the world, we need to get rid of pollution, we need to get rid of famine and war and all these things. Very big, complicated world. And so it assumes that the solution to its experience is going to have to, reflect how big and complicated it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not. The end of the individual is not worth mentioning.
Is there something beyond searching for experiences?
This.
Yeah, I mean.
This.
Yeah.
Is beyond searching for experience.
Can this be grasped at all?
No.
Do you ever feel like you're repeating yourself?
No, I don't actually.
Really?
No, it's fresh and new. Nobody. If I knew what I was talking about, and I was holding it on and talking about a past knowing or understanding of what happened, then there would be a repeating.
Right.
This isn't any of that. It's just simply this. responding to questions.
Oh, right.
And it's always fresh and new. It's always explosive and alive. It's always no thing appearing as this.
And there's no experience.
There's no experience.
That's gone. That's
Yeah.
that-
It collapses.
You
You can't understand that.
No.
It doesn't make sense. It's beyond belief. You won't believe this.
Yeah.
If you do, it's not what I'm talking about.
Right.
It's the end. There's no one here,
Yeah.
so there's no over there.
Right.
There's simply everything. There's simply everything. All there is everything.
And no one observing it.
Who would observe everything? If there were an observer, there would be somebody here who was observing something else over there.
So how come, so when people are speaking about meditation and observing and watching, what are they speaking about?
They're talking about their experience. They're talking about things that help them. The problem for the biggest problem for the individual are emotions and feelings. I mean, emotions and thoughts. That's the biggest problem. And so all the solutions that the individual have include itself, because it can't imagine that it's not. Because even the imagination that it isn't is going to have it in it, imagining that it's not. So it thinks that detachment is a solution, and so it seeks detachment because that sounds like a good idea, and it can do it. It can actually do it. Most of the teachings that you hear, there's a real integrity. Not with all of them, I don't think. I've heard that that's not true. But with some of them, there's a real integrity in it. People have really detached. And you can realize all sorts of things. And it's a dream. It's a dream. The individual, when it arises, it's sort of like it sort of goes out like that. And in that is the whole story. And in that story, the I can realize God. I can realize all those things. I can realize eternity. I am eternal. I can realize that.
Oh, that's within its grasp.
Absolutely, absolutely.
But that's not what you're talking about.
No, it says nothing. No, it doesn't connect anywhere. It's a dream. There is no real I. If the I is there and realize eternity, that I will still suggest that there's meaning and purpose. That it is better to realize eternity in God than it is not to. That's like being a really, really good person. And that's what the individual is all about, being a good person. The straitjacket.
Yeah.
It's a straitjacket. That's what it is.
Well, how did you come with the understanding of where you are at, with what is now?
Yeah, there's no understanding.
There's no understanding, but you came across
No.
or what?
No, you're making it personal.
Okay, no, right.
You're putting it somewhere other than this.
Right, okay.
You're saying that something brought this about. Nothing brought this about.
Your passion, perhaps?
No, we're not talking about a cause and effect reality.
No.
We're suggesting there's no reality.
Sometimes I think it's now I hear you and I think it's an experience what I will I feel sometimes just what I'm in my thoughts or my feeling, and sometimes wow, a burn anything could and I feel gratitude for life, and it's a energetic feeling. It's intense, and life is very alive, and everything is even sickness or even anything could trigger could arrive, and even when I'm down, suddenly, oh wow, life is so. It's an experience because I realize then that I see it, I feel it's an experience.
Yeah, and that's not what I'm talking about.
No. Good, because it could be a story that I told myself or that I
It's just what
perceive
apparently
life.
happened.
Huh?
It's just what apparently happens. There's suddenly wow.
Yeah.
And there's suddenly that, and there's suddenly that. That's just what's happening.
Yes, that's...
That's just what's happening.
Yes,
But
I see that.
what you're describing is it's happening to you.
Yes.
And what this is describing, it's not happening to anybody.
No, that's true.
There's just happening.
But is it possible that suddenly there's an open window, so, and after I recuperate that, to say it's me that I...
Everything is only saying one thing. This is complete.
Okay.
This is fulfilled. This is whole. That's all that anything is saying. That's it. That's simple. And it doesn't care if anybody hears.
Yes.
And how do you relate to the past now?
There's no one here.
So if a memory
There's
comes
just-
up, it's just a thought.
There's just what's happening. What I can't describe is what a thought is when there's nobody that's paying attention to it. Just like I
Yeah,
can't
what is
describe,
that?
no one can describe what it's like not to see what's happening. So the individual looks, and the function of the brain is seeing. What's the difference? How do you describe that? They're worlds apart.
So for you, there's no individual, there's just the brain.
There's no individual there. There's no individual.
There's just happening.
There's just happening. Absolutely. Yeah.
You're happy when it resonates with
No, it's not I'm happy when it resonates with you. When it's said, there's something in me that goes, yeah.
It's just happening.
Yeah, it's just happening.
Right.
I couldn't give a fuck about you, sorry. I don't know where that comes from. Not personal.
No.
Just business. This has no expectation or intention for anything to happen. So there's no expectation for it to be heard, no intention for it to be heard. And then misleadingly, admittedly, it's misleadingly, this says it doesn't care. That doesn't really hit the point. But there's no holding on to what apparently does or doesn't happen. Yeah.
So some describe it as love. Do you use that terminology?
Unconditional love. Unconditional. So inconceivable love.
Inconceivable.
Unconditional love. Non-conditional. The individual is conditional. It lives in a conditioned world.
But then what is love? I know that's the corniest question anybody asks, but what is that if you're in a space where...
Well, to be really dramatic, rape is love. But the recognition of love, or how it's revealed, is the recognition that nothing could be out of place. Nothing could possibly be wrong.
No separation.
No separation. In that, everything is, I'm going to say stupid, wrong words like accepted, or everything is just what it is without any need to be anything else. This is that. It's not anywhere else. Unconditional love is personing, acting like it's looking for something else. That's unconditional love. There's nothing that's not that. It's unconditional.
Right.
So it's not relationship. It's not relatable. You can't make sense of it.
By using that phrase, though, you create something you just look for, to seek.
Every single word that's said here can be misunderstood. And if you're stuck with the words, then that's just what you get.
It is pretty amazing.
It's awesome. It is awesome. When there's no one in relationship to everything, everything is then finally what it is. And that is just an absolute explosion.
Yeah. It's like
a non-exploding explosion of endless everything. Infinite everything. So the individual knows that this is a glass. It's in relationship to it. And that covers over the absolute... I mean, first off, it's an amazing creative thing. I mean, it's a glass. Who could have thought of a glass? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But the individual knows that what it is.
Right. And
So,
that's the end of this.
so the miracle that it is completely lost.
Or that you know how to do this around it.
Well, anything.
That's
Anything.
the
I'm
thing.
pointing to anything, actually. I'm just using a glass as an
Yeah.
example. Everything is that miracle.
Yeah.
But when I know what it is, it's dead. It's dead. It's an object. It's a thing. It's real. So that can't possibly be what I'm looking
And it
for.
can be acted on.
I'm not suggesting that this walks around going, that's not what it is.
Well, it's also kind of amazing that there's no storytelling going on over there about what this is.
Yeah. Well, there's no story.
There's no purpose.
There's no
end to this.
There's no story, and everything's empty.
There's nothing to get out of doing this. Do these meetings just keep happening?
Apparently. They don't really happen.
Right.
Thanks for having them anyway, then.
What kind of does happen? Happen kind of implies time, doesn't it?
Apparently.
Like a
This doesn't-
demarcation in time.
The individual
doesn't it?
wants to get rid of things.
Yeah.
Because it wants to find a position. It only understands through having a position. What it can't do anything with is that this is and isn't. It's not real and it's not unreal. So time is apparent. We can talk about the conversation we had when you came in this afternoon. That doesn't mean it's real. It doesn't mean it's unreal. That's just what apparently happens. It's this appearing as that. And that leaves no position for the individual to understand or know what's going on. That it always has to fall on one side or the other. There always has to be no time or real time or no thing or real thing.
Right. Hmm.
So even beyond doesn't have any ground to stand on because it's always in relation to something that...
Totally.
Yeah.
Although I say beyond, just as a description.
Yeah.
Yeah. But there's nothing beyond. I'll say beyond the personal, I can say that. It happens. No word comes close. But some come closer. It all has to do with the individual's journey of finding something. Hope. Hope, if you look at it, is really a terrible word. The individual lives in hope. Hope is never this.
No.
Hope is always what's going to happen. It's going to happen in the future. I have hope that it'll get better. Yeah, terrible. Yeah. There's no hope. So hope is a dream that the individual needs. It hopes it won't die. It's a very short list of people. It's looking bleak.
No one gets out alive.
No one gets out alive.
It's like a treadmill, really.
Oh, it's totally a treadmill.
It never ends.
It never ends. Until it does.
Yeah. Until it drops away.
Yeah.
So you think it drops away, it'll drop away for everyone, eventually?
Well, it's not real. So it doesn't drop away for anyone, but it'll definitely stop happening.
When you die, right?
Could be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But not
I
necessarily.
tell you, there's a realization that I am eternal. Because now is eternal, meaning endless. I can realize now, I can do that. So I don't know if some sort of psychic reality where there's a reincarnation, I don't know. From here, there's no reason why anything couldn't happen. But who wants an eternal dream of hope? Never this.
Not even the eye wants that.
What's that?
Not even.
Oh yeah, it does. Yeah, it does. Yeah, it doesn't want to die.
It's just afraid of death, though.
Yeah, totally.
It's
So
just afraid of death, so it
eternal
has no
suffering is
choice.
better than
Yeah,
death.
eternal suffering.
Was this just a concept?
I am?
The eternal suffering. Is this
Well,
just
actually,
a concept?
well, the eternal is something that I can realize. I don't want to go too far into it, but I can do that. I can do all sorts of things.
One time said that special thing, and there is a huge
Who?
special thing in the eye, wanting to be special.
No, the I is special. The experience of the I is I am special because it's all about, if it's all about me,
Yeah.
the whole
Makes
appearance. I am the center of the universe. That's pretty special.
Yeah.
Do you think the I is understood as dualistic with world, like if north, south, east, west, and then there's me, world? So if there's no north, then there's no south, right? Once you take away the north, then you don't have the south. But if you take away me, then what falls away is the world.
Absolutely.
So I is defined as dualistic with world, right?
No, the dualism is I am here.
Okay.
Here is the beginning of dualism. So the construct goes like this. There's a tension in the body that is assumed as a here, as personal, as here.
Yeah.
That here immediately becomes personal, or I am.
Sure.
And then what the appearance still doesn't make sense. So around the I am are our belief systems built up. That's it. And that whole construct is inside, outside. It don't need a world. You don't need north and south. It's simply, and that happens in this. This appears as that.
Yeah, listen, this appears.
Appears as the construct of I am here, I am all my belief systems.
Okay.
That's this appearing as that.
That seems like it's the way humans function. It doesn't seem like that would be.
But that's what the me created, right?
What?
It doesn't seem like that would be what an animal or plant.
Totally.
This sense of I, but we're naming it I. We have like a parallel world going on with thought, and the culture puts in your name and your sex.
No. It totally happens within the body. It's not a reaction to cultural conditioning.
The sense is there at birth.
No, it's not.
Prior to that.
It seems to come after birth. It seems to come around 18 months or so.
So you don't think it's something that's put into the...
No, absolutely not. If there's only spacious aliveness, nothing is holding on to anything that's happening. So any apparent conditioning, any apparent putting on, just flows right through, like everything else does in spacious aliveness. There has to be a center that takes responsibility for what apparently is happening, or what's being said, or what's being conditioned.
But it seems like that if it happens around that time, 18 months you say, although I think it's actually prior to that because I've had a lot of children, but I mean the sense of I is there, the sense of, just this body, and then but it's reinforced by the culture.
Yeah, you could say that.
But it seems to have a functional, it seems to have some function.
No, it has no
level.
function.
As
a function, it would have to be able to have some power or be a cause of something. It is simply a reaction. It doesn't do anything. It reacts.
Do you see that animals have the same?
No, they don't.
No, they don't. So that's what I mean. It seems that what we're talking about is the human dimension of experience.
No.
Comes out of that.
No. No. It doesn't actually cause or create anything. It's a reaction to a reaction.
But it seems like it's a natural aspect of not that it's good.
It's a psychosomatic misunderstanding.
For humans.
And it's obvious when it falls away that what's natural is no I.
So the human dimension you can actually.
If you call it human dimension.
Well, I'm just talking about it because it doesn't arise in animals or plants.
Yeah.
It's arising in humans.
If you want to talk about neuroscientists, the neuroscientists will tell you their brains aren't complicated or complex enough to extrapolate a personal experience. And ours are, and that's the reason that it seems to happen.
Some sort of physical structure that
it's just big. If you want to go further into it, we learned how to cook food. Because we had learned how to cook food, our mandible was able to get smaller. Because the mandible got smaller, it had space for the brain to get bigger. As the brain got bigger, it was able to become more complex. And in its complexity, it was able to extrapolate the experience or the sense of an I.
Right.
Yeah.
So
there's no point or purpose of it.
No.
And that's just a story.
It's just what evolved. This
is what apparently happened.
Right. But when the self fell away, or whatever, however we want to put that the self that didn't exist fell away. Jim functions.
Jim doesn't.
Within the human.
But this
does. This functions within
the body does.
And I know that because I've met other people that's possible. Because I don't know about myself at all. But so I don't know. I'm not trying to make any point, but I just keep coming to that sense of this human dimension of thought creating all of this.
Thought doesn't create anything.
Yeah.
Thought's like a newspaper. It's a report.
Really? Because I've heard that this is here because of thought.
Yeah, I know.
I think, therefore I am.
Yeah, I think, therefore I think I am.
Well, I mean, a lot of times in seeking, the whole thing is about controlling thought or getting rid of thought.
Yeah, we talked about that though. Because that's what the I, those are the biggest problems for I.
Right.
And so it wants to detach from those, and can.
Because they can be really torturous.
Only because the individual takes responsibility for them.
Yeah, we want to have good thoughts though.
Well, the individual is totally into free will, the ability to choose, and it's feeling that if it chooses good things, it'll have a good life. How's it going?
I don't know.
If it was what it says it is, it wouldn't have the experience that it's having.
It's good and bad.
Yeah.
So there's really no sense in improving. It's not like I can adopt better belief systems.
Actually, you can.
Can I remove?
Actually, you can, and you can go to therapy and get help. Absolutely. And this isn't suggesting that any of that is wrong or right, and it's not suggesting that one shouldn't or should. The suggestion is that it doesn't touch the problem, the core problem, but it can make your prison a little more comfortable. Rearrange the furniture so you can get to the toilet without tripping over chairs. Why not?
Can I ask you a bit of again, about the relationship between thought and perception, or does one cause the other? I mean, how do you see that? I mean, are these paintings there because of what I think of paintings, or are you saying the thought is just a newspaper, it's a report?
Seeing is a function of the brain.
Sure, yeah.
And so this brain sees paintings. No thought is required.
Okay. Okay. The thoughts may say, hey, I've got thoughts about that.
Totally.
Because that looks like New York, so then I think about New York because I see that. That's all it is.
That's all it is.
And it goes on all day.
It's a messaging system.
Yeah. And no one's controlling the thoughts, it just happens all day.
Well, the eye has an effect on thoughts.
Okay.
By taking responsibility to it, it creates a feedback loop between thoughts and feelings.
Right.
So by saying, that's not a thought or a feeling I want to have, so dramatic feelings and things in the past, there can be a rejection of those. And that rejection then actually creates neurosis. So that, as a reaction, not as a cause, creates neurosis and other problems, with the feedback loop that goes on. And so when the I is no longer there, meaning no one cares,
right.
There's just what happens to arise, the whole system sort of calms down, gets a bit softer.
Because the example I was thinking is that there's a picture of New York, but it still has the Twin Towers in it. So I might have this big drama in brain, oh, isn't that so sad that the Twin Towers are in the picture? And then I think, well, I shouldn't be thinking about that because that's a cool story. But once all that I feedback loop is gone, then I can just say, well, there's New York and Twin Towers in it.
But why wouldn't you think it shouldn't have happened? Anything can arise. This isn't about having particular thoughts.
So it just becomes a so what?
It just becomes what's happening.
Yeah, okay.
And nobody's there to say so what.
But somebody told you it was New York. You have to be told that. Because otherwise you'd be looking at it and
But this has nothing to do with what the brain has as information.
But it's what's put into you, what you've been told.
Yeah, you're mixing up what we're talking about.
Okay.
This has nothing to do with the conditioning of the brain. This has to do with an experience inside the body that arises out of attention that says the conditioning of the brain matters. It doesn't, because nothing matters. There's no goal to this. There's no intention to this. This is freedom arising as this. It doesn't need to be conditioned or unconditioned. There isn't anything better about being unconditioned. There isn't anything better about being no me. That's not what's being shared here. What's being shared is there is only unconditional love. There is nothing else. And that can arise or appear as anything. And that doesn't matter. That's it. And this is that. It doesn't need to become anything. It's already that.
But it has to die in order to...
It does not have to die.
No, okay.
You just have to stop.
The individual wants it to die because it thinks it's going to get something. When the individual stops happening, there's no one left to get anything. No one ever gets it. It just doesn't get it. There's nothing here that walks around knowing anything about what we're sharing here. It just doesn't happen. It's the end of the need. It's the end of the expectation or the intention that this needs to be something else. It's the end of the experience of separation in which all of that seems to arise, all that need and everything. But just because there's no separation doesn't mean that somebody gets that. And the appearance of separation is no proof of separation. There's no separation already. So there's no benefit to there being no I. This isn't about getting anywhere.
It's funny, I think there's a tendency, I know that you've heard this all before, there's a tendency to try to get to where you're talking to. And then I catch myself using my imagination to try to get where you're getting to, as if to say, I need to imagine what you're saying.
But you're not actually doing that.
No.
That's just what seems to be happening. And there's nothing right or wrong with it. That's just what's happening. There is only happening. Nobody's doing it. Even the individual isn't anybody doing it. There's no way to choose not to do it. Choosing not to do it is the same thing. This isn't suggesting a certain movement. The suggestion is nothing moves.
Is there a relationship between thoughts and feelings for you?
Yeah, definitely.
So it's still,
The whole system still seems to function.
So thoughts and feelings are linked? Are linked.
Well, they can play on each other.
They can, but they don't have to.
No.
Oh, they don't have to?
No.
When there's a me here,
Well, with the me...
there's always linking it to...
Well, the me is looking for something. So the me, when a thought comes up, there's, I think I've talked about this, there's a little toolkit that it's got.
Yeah.
And every thought and every feeling goes through the system of beliefs. So you've got this enormous file cabinet, right? And the file cabinet has the heading on the file cabinet is how to find what I'm looking for. And it takes this enormous system of beliefs and it's filing away the whole time, because thoughts come up and they don't actually fit. So they have to be tinkered with to fit into the right box. Some are rejected and those are put down there. I'm not supposed to think those things. That's a good thought, I'll put it over there. That's a bad thought. I got all these thoughts and all these boxes everywhere. That's all about how to get what I'm looking for. That gives a lot of energy to thoughts and feelings, makes them seem important. When that box falls away, there's just thoughts and feelings. Who cares? There's just thoughts and feelings, so the whole system quiets down a bit. Because there's nobody left.
And you're not looking for anything.
Totally. It doesn't have to be any certain way. This doesn't have to be in a certain way. For the individual, it has to be a certain way. It has to be a certain way. It wants to be liked.
Yeah.
It wants to find something. It wants control. It wants to know what's happening.
Right. And it's doing all that because?
Because it thinks this needs to be different to find what it's looking for. It's doing that because this is dissatisfying.
Okay.
You know how to make God laugh?
A which?
You know how to make God laugh? Tell him your plans. Or her. Or it.
Yeah, I know, I keep tinkering back with this, and it's like this, it's the goal is to get away from suffering, right? So,
well, that's the idea, that's the experience of the individual. Yeah. I want to be happy all the time. That's what I want. It doesn't think it through, though. Because if it thought it through, it'd be obvious. You couldn't have one feeling all the time because you wouldn't know what that feeling was.
Right.
If there weren't any contrast.
Right.
But that's what it's looking for. Endless happiness.
Jim, would you say you have more like an awakeness?
No. There's an experience, I am repeating myself, there is an experience, maybe, an experience there that there's someone inside, right? That can stop happening. And with that, stops the experience of there's something in there and therefore something out there. There's no more anybody who's awake. Nobody, it's not there's no suggestion of anybody getting anything.
It's not experience.
We're talking about a loss.
Right. It's not another
a loss.
experience.
It's not another experience, yeah.
I find your sequence very interesting, where you begin with the tension in the body, completely neutral. You go to the sense of here, again, completely neutral.
Not really.
Not really.
No. Here is taken on as it's the first thing of experiential knowing, and it's like a baby with a comfort blanket. It feels, there's something really tangible and really graspable about it. There's something really, really good about it. It feels good to know something. It's just there's a long tail on that.
The question there is, the comfort would have to be for somebody who hasn't
Yeah, but I think I said it sort of arises simultaneously.
Yes, I
Sort of the
understand.
same thing.
Yeah, exactly. 'Cause I
When
was
it fall, all I'm describing is what was revealed when it fell away. That's just how it fell away.
Yeah,
That's
that's what's
here.
so lovely, is that a lot of this is descriptive rather than
Yeah.
prescriptive.
But if you hear prescription, that's a misunderstanding.
Yeah,
There's no
exactly.
prescription.
Because I was thinking then, as the I am being the third step, which it isn't. It's just-
Well, a little bit it is, but there is somebody there that then takes on the here. It doesn't matter.
Right.
Yeah.
But very often in the teaching, as it is proposed in other places, you begin with the I am.
Right.
And so I love the fact that it's beginning in a very neutral way.
Yeah.
Before the I am comes in. And it's almost like the I am requires an individual.
No,
No?
it is the individual.
That's the difference, yes.
It is the individual. There is no
Yes.
individual.
Exactly.
It is the individual.
Yeah. So you would say then that the sense that the individual has is first a feeling in the body rather than the feeling of being, of existing.
Well, I don't know if they would be the same thing. I am here, I exist.
Right. And that would need a body.
Yeah, well, it arises out of the body.
Gotcha.
The experience, now the I can have an apparent experience beyond existence. That's the experience. Now, if that's the brain doing it or not, I'm not sure, but I know that they can do that. So it feels like I can have experience without a body. But as far as this is concerned, that's a dream.
Right. Well, oh.
Yeah. Well, this isn't a dream. This is an appearance.
Uh-huh.
The only dream is the individual. Everything else is just what it is. Without any need to be it.
Yes.
Aliveness. Spacious aliveness.
That's fantastic. Yeah,
Yeah.
because so much is said that the whole thing is a dream.
Yeah, I know.
No.
I know.
And it's only the I.
Yeah, it's only the I that's a dream. Yeah.
I'm sorry to hear that. So all this is not a dream, it's just the I.
It's just the I. It's the experience that I am here, experiencing that. That's a dream.
So as far as these walls are concerned, the walls are really here. It's not.
Well, they're not really here.
Okay.
They're not real and they're not unreal. It's the ungraspable walling.
Right.
So if there's no one here, I don't see anyone else in
That's
there.
right.
And there is there's no story.
That's
There's
right.
only a happening.
That's right. But it's not a happening, it's happening.
It's
It's happening.
right.
It's happening.
It's happening, and everything else is illusory. The fact that-
When there's only happening, there's nothing else.
Exactly. So, but the constant coming forth with trying to unravel, it's just the mind stuff working itself out.
It's the experience of the individual trying to
Yeah.
find something.
Okay.
Trying to bridge the gap that itself is.
So there's no one here, there's no one there, there's no meeting here tonight.
Well, there's
only
a
happening.
There's a parent meeting,
But it's.
and that's just what seems to be
Right.
happening.
But it's only the happening that is reality.
It's not real.
Right.
It's not unreal.
Right.
It's ungraspable.
Right, exactly. It's
The absolute
Right,
appearing
Right.
as meeting.
right. And that's constant.
No. This
The
doesn't.
happening is constant.
No.
Or, no?
No, there's no continuum.
Okay. Okay.
A continuum is part of the dream, the need of the individual
Right.
for this to end up somewhere else other than what is.
Okay. Okay.
This is everything.
Right.
There's nowhere else for anything to happen. So it's impossible for there to be a constant. A constant would be a real movement through time.
Right, right.
There's no real movement through
No,
time.
right.
It's the movement through time is only apparent.
Okay.
So if the individual or the I is the dream, and this is just happening,
Yeah.
so it's the perception coming from the I that's creating what the I is seeing.
No. It's creating the overlay on the appearance. That the experience says, I am real, everything's happening to me, I have a life, which is a journey heading towards something better, and that journey is called the search for meaning and purpose. That's the dream. Everything else is just simply what it is.
So if the I disappears,
Yes?
perceptively, this stays the same.
Absolutely.
Interesting. But it's still not real, or it's
It
not
never
real.
was real. That's the false claim of the individual that it's real. And that experience comes out of the experience that I am real.
So if the I disappears and then this stays the same, what is this if it's not real?
Indescribable. The absolute.
Interesting.
This thing. Which is already the case.
So, Jim, are you saying that the sense of self-existence is this, that there's a self, is the same as the self-contraction, the contraction in the body?
Yeah.
But that happens prior to the thoughts
Yeah.
about it?
No. We're not talking about thoughts.
Okay.
We're talking about an
Just
experience.
thoughts.
We're talking about an experience.
Yeah, okay.
I am real. I am
The
here.
experience of being
Here.
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 Yeah.
There's no here. There's just everything.
At the risk of this being asked 1,000 times, what causes the I am? What causes that?
The tension in the body.
What?
The tension in the body.
Okay, right.
Tension, here, I am.
But then that,
Okay.
on top
All of that happens timelessly.
and it seems that overlaying that tension, which is already there, is the sense of self-existence.
You could say that.
Yeah.
The description of it is a story. So it's bullshit. It's just a way of describing the way it appeared when it fell apart. But it's meaningless.
Okay.
It's just a description. That's how it appeared here when it fell away. That sort of construction.
So is there an ability for me to not take responsibility for thoughts?
You
Knowing this,
have
and I
no
am.
power to do anything. And
Like in the-
I am the experience of being responsible for what's happening. I am is the experience of being the center of the universe, and everything is happening to me. And there is nothing the I, or the experience that I could do about that. It's completely trapped and hopeless.
So it has no spectrum of doership whatsoever? There's no spectrum of free will
Well,
whatsoever?
you can detach. There's an experience of detachment.
Okay. So
You
there
could
is
do all
no-
sorts of things, but that has nothing to do with what we're talking about.
Right. No.
We're talking about an inconceivable end of
Right.
real time and distance. The collapsing of experience. Which is this. Without anyone knowing what it is. That's what it is. That's this.